G'day guys, welcome back to Beers and Breakevens, brought to you by Bloke in a Bar, the beer of rugby league. I was going to say the sport of beer. That would have been a fucking shocker. Just a reminder too, Bloke in a Bar, Bloke jerseys coming out Monday, 6 p.m. These are unreal. Rugby League V, they are sensational. Wore one on Monday. Even fits the front rowers, so worth getting your paws on one of them. Join once again, Timmy Williams from the Supercoach Playbook. It's doing.
Yeah, tell you what, mate, if there was a sport of beer, I'd back myself to do a bit of damage. I'd be better than I would be a footballer. So, mate, going all right. Good to be back for another week.
Mate, pretty good week for us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good weeks for us at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. It feels a little bit surreal, but another good week for us.
Yeah, it could be a tough listen this week, I reckon, with a bit of pep in the step.
Mate, even fucking Matty did well. Everyone's doing well. It's unbelievable. We welcome Matty the Water Boy. What's doing?
What's going on, boys? Big news. I'm inside the top 30,000.
Good God.
So I'm on top of the world right now.
He's making waves. I love it. Myself and Timmy. Timmy top scored out of us. Actually, did you beat Timmy, Matty?
No.
Okay.
Not that good.
You wouldn't have been that far off, to be fair. I think you beat me, but we'll get to that in a minute. I scored 1,222. Was happy with that. Rank went up about 300 spots, so I'm 598. Timmy, sitting in the top 1,000 as well.
Yeah, into 803, 12, I think 83 or so I was last week, which is good. So making a bit of a dive there and within touching distance of that sort of top 10, top 100 that we want to be aiming for, top 1, I suppose, most weeks. But yeah, getting there, mate, and pretty well placed heading into edging towards the Origin period, which we'll get to a bit more later on.
Mate, I was confident one of us was going to be in the top 1,000 this year. For two of us to be there, I'm fucking stoked, just quietly. Matty, rank, score, what's doing?
You got me, Guru. You got me by 8 points. I got 12-14.
Love that.
Which I was happy with. And yeah, I'm ranked 28,982. So that's getting better every week.
I love it. Mate, you're making more ground than we are each week, to be fair.
I fucking hope so.
I know you're a self-confessed draft expert. You're a self-confessed soon-to-be classic expert. At what point and what rank, I suppose, do you officially convert and become an official classic expert?
Mate, believe it or not, my draft team's actually still doing better than my classic team. So I'm a real pain in the ass to be around this time of the year. But yeah, my mates that are very keen on their classic, I'm sure they're sick of me carrying on like a tit. But mate, I'm happy. I said to you before, I haven't made a stack of trades. I've saved a few, which I know you have as well, and we're both sitting with a good rank. So, mate, all looking very positive. Speaking of positive, now, the Beers and Breakevens group on Supercoach is going absolute fucking millions. Myself and Tim, we're doing very well, and we're just inside the top 100. I think I'm 73. I think you're like mid-80s or something. We've actually got 4 of the top 10 overall Supercoach players right now in our group, which is crazy. We've got 5, 6, 7, and 8, and as it stands, we've got 12 players that are in the top 100.
Bloody good going. We must be doing something right.
We must be doing something right. Our rank's improving every week. The 10 big dogs, we've got 4 of them. So almost 50% of them. So very, very happy with that. As it stands right now, Grant is the overall leader of our group. His team is the Pretenders. They're 5th overall in Supercoach, so well and truly in the hunt to take home 50K, 52K potentially. The Dark Knights is second. Glenn, he's coming 6th in our group. Sorry, he's coming 2nd in our group, 6th overall. Team Hoppo has been floating around the last few weeks. Luke, he's 3rd in our group, 7th overall. The Bearded Clams, Alex, not bad there. Alex is sitting 4th in our group and is 8th overall. And then 5th in our group is Lachlan. He's sitting 51 overall. And then I've got to mention him in 6th place in our group, Porch Lights. He's been in the top 5 all week. So there'll be a bit of head noise for him this week, dropping to 6th, but still doing very well there, 52nd overall. And Timmy, you won't fucking believe it. The highest score in the Beers and Breakevens this week was from Nick. He scored 1,396. He also topped the entire Supercoach this week.
Jesus
if we're not doing something right, I'll give it away.
Nick, a bit of cashola in his pocket this week for that. $1,000, I think it might be.
1,000, is it?
Yeah, so not bad from him. Good start.
Reach out, Nick. Reach out. We are thirsty. All right, let's move to the team list that have dropped this afternoon. There's a bit happening. Friday, we've got the Canberra Raiders taking on the Canterbury Bulldogs. Chancellor Clockstad returns at fullback. Thank God. Croker returns in the centres and Matty Frawley in the 6. We've got Josh Jackson returning and Max King returns to the bench for the Canterbury Bulldogs. Tell you what, my Max King alert was going insane halfway through last week. A little bit disappointing, let's be honest here.
got his start, didn't up his minutes that well. I mean, played, I think, 42 it was. It was actually down from the week before, I believe. He was 44 minutes. So he's still punching out his good PPM, but not getting sort of the bigger minutes we'd hoped for. Shout out to Jared Croker, one of the greats of rugby league. He's an SC playbook contributor for us, done plenty for us the last couple of years. Actually played Supercoach the last couple of years and did pretty well for himself. So, mate, I couldn't be happy to see him get back into first grade. I think he's got another 8 or 9 games to get to game 300, so I would love to see him get there before the end of the season.
And in good form as per usual. That's actually the first Friday game. I'll do the Thursday game now. We've got the Rabbitohs taking on the Broncos. Matty, I'm surprised you didn't pull me up there just quietly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought
you would have been all over me. Isaiah Tass, he has been named at centre. We're going to talk about him in our cheapie section a little bit later. Very, very interesting. Payne Haas is out. You've got two very smug fuckers sitting on the sitting up here that don't have Payne Haas. So another little W for us.
I thought you just disregarded the most probably traded in play this week in Supercoach and probably the most traded out. Mate, very smug about that one. It's, you know, you don't like to see people go down injured, albeit it's a grade 1 AC joint, so nothing too serious. But with Origin looming, those owners of Payne Haas have a big decision to make, and for the first time this season, I can say I'm glad I'm not one of them, because it's a shit decision to have.
Oh, I'm stoked I'm not one of them. The late game on Friday, Penrith Panthers taking on the Eels. Opachik, he returns at centre. Dill Brown moves into the 6 jersey. Smart footy there by the coach. Brian Toto, he's been named on the extended bench, so we're going to have to keep an eye on what happens with him. 2 questions. Does he come in? If he does, who does he come in for? What do you reckon?
I think so, mate. I think he'll come back in. This isn't based on any inside word, but they reckon he's back to full training and good to go. They reckon he was relatively close last week, so, I mean, pretty quick healer in the past, Brian Toto. You know, with how good their side's going, they won't need to rush him. In fact, they wouldn't. There's no need to put him in the squad. If they weren't sort of semi-confident that he was going to play. If he comes in, mate, it's got to be Charlie Staines, doesn't it? If Talion May loses that spot on the left, I think Toto will come back in. I think he'll play right in place of Charlie Staines, so he's different edge to usual, and which will be just a win all round for Supercoaches.
Is Brian Toto, if he moves to the right, do you still consider him the same as what we would have at the start of the year?
It'll be interesting, won't it? I mean, he started the year slow, but that was also without Nathan Cleary for the first 3 or 4 rounds there. I mean, look, at his price, he should, I believe, have a pretty high break-even, because he was battling. He's already dropped in price. He's still $736K. There you go. That can't be right, sure.
And to be fair, the first 3 weeks, yes, he was missing Cleary, but we also thought everyone had slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, so he only got the first 2 weeks in. So $736K, but his break-even's $170. So look, he's got some big price drops to come. We can have a look how he slots in on that right edge. He'll be fine, but whether or not he's as effective, bagging as many tries, if he's back this week, he probably plays Origin as well. So I don't think we need to jump the gun and get him in. There are some other good buys on the radar, and Toto, as good as he'd be now, he looks like one for round 14.
Mate, let's move to Super Saturday. The first game is the Manly Seagulls and the West Tigers. A heap of relevant names here for the Manly Seagulls. Turbo, handy fullback, returns to this side. Ola Kawatu, back from suspension. And a little bit of a surprising one here. Burbo, named at centre. I know a lot of people would have been carrying him on the pine the last few weeks. He'll be an interesting one, pending when the other boys are coming back. Josh Elliott, not as relevant, but a big in for the Manly Seagulls there. We'll talk about Turbo a little bit later. For the Tigers, Leilua out, Seafarth in. So if you are a Leilua owner, that one is a stinger. Let's move to the Roosters. Titans, Daniel Tupu returns, Nguama out, Fafita out. We're going to touch on him a little bit later, but bit of a stinger there.
Yeah, just before we get to that, can we touch back on Manly and your notes and Olika Tautau in that one?
Thank you. Didn't need that.
Under the bus. Mate, Dave Fafita, what a ride it's been with him. He'd sort of been off to start the season, was producing some pretty ordinary scores, and then went ton. People were scrambling to get him back in. And then he punched out about a 40 and a 20 the last 2 weeks. So now all of a sudden, was it an MCL he did? I think it might have been. So 3 to 4 weeks, Origin looming. He's a sell. The good thing is he's still got decent value on him at over 700K. So he's not one of them ones where he's had some average weeks, dropping a heap in price. We've still got value, and there's heaps of options to go to.
Glad you didn't point out my attempt at spelling Alloy either. Roosters taking on the Titans. Tupu back. Nguama out. Fafita out. As we said, Cowboys and the Knights. Cowboys 1-17. Drinky still staying at fullback. We're going to talk about him later as a little pod move. Newcastle. A lot of changes here, but if any of these impact your Supercoach team, I feel for you. It's just a heap of changes, but just nothing doing. So we're going to leave it there. You can have a look at that yourself.
There's some bloke out there who owns Leo Thompson and see him starting at lock. They're going, you beauty. I've been biding my time with Big Leo. And
Good God. Mate, Sunday, the Melbourne Storm take on the Dragons. Storm, pretty much the same. Dragons, Jack Bird has been named once again in the 6, Moan in the 14. Surprised me. Sharks, Warriors. Sharkies, Dale Finucane returns. Cam McInnes benched. We spoke about it last week. A lot of mouths to feed with Cam McInnes. I don't think I can do it personally.
Can't do him off the bench. Look, it still wouldn't shock me to see him start. With Dale going to prop and McInnes starting at lock, I still think that's probably the best makeup for their side. You know, we speak on and on again about how important your agile forwards are these days, and there's plenty of big boys in that pack. So I just think Dale can do the same role at prop. They can get a ball-playing lock in Cam McInnes. I wouldn't be shocked to see him start this week. If he does, he becomes a serious option because of Chris Randall, who's peaking in price at the moment. He's a bit over 400k and probably has to be moved on before round 13. McInnes could be a serious option there should that eventuate. And just the other one I wanted to touch on team news before we move on, Billy Smith, finally from the abyss on the extended bench, which wouldn't seem that big a news, but there are still a lot who held out there. And the fact that the Roosters play round 13 and offers that bye coverage, if he wasn't named, it'd just be a no-brainer down to one of these cheap CT dubs like Tass this week. It's a bit of food for thought if he does come into the side this week.
I'm just thinking about their team. Does he definitely play round 13? Who will they...
Well, Teddy will go out. Yeah. Joey Manu, I would say, would go to fullback. Daniel Tupu would probably need an injury to be playing Origin or two. So, no, not definitely. But at the same...
between him and... Kevin Billy.
Yeah, Kevin Billy, I'd say, because one will slide into the wing there. But at the same time, mate, Paul Momirovski hasn't set the world alight. Like, a lot can change between now and then. And, if I was a betting man, and I am, I'd say he probably would be there somewhere.
Yeah.
But, you're guessing.
Yeah, very handy for 13, though. Even worth taking the punt, I think, to have an extra guy there. Mate, you mentioned it a few times, State of Origin, just around the corner. We need to start, we mentioned this 2 or 3 weeks ago that you need to start considering it, but if you haven't, you seriously need to now. What are your strategies heading into the Origin period?
Yeah, mate. So there's so many different levels and tiers you can go into when it goes into Origin chat and buy planning and pretty well from now through until round 13, which is that first major buy round. We'll touch on different aspects. A few things to start looking at. Firstly, the fact that the 2 major buy rounds are round 13 and round 17. Head-to-head players can pretty well not change their strategy. Look at saving trades for the head-to-head finals back end of the season. Overall, players need to be looking at that very closely right now and be going, how do I maximise players on field in that period without decimating the strength of my team? So I said, round 13, round 17. When we're getting into the deep dive of things, you have to look at then who plays the Friday after Origin 1 and Origin 3. Because then you're looking at guys who might get early rests, who might come off the bench. They might not play that week. I've had a look at it. It's not too terrifying for Supercoach owners. It's the Cowboys versus the Dragons on Friday night that's in round 14. Players this could impact pretty well Origin-wise. Maybe Ruben Cotter if he gets a start for the Maroons. Maybe Val Holmes, but he's not that Supercoach relevant. Round 18, Cowboys Sharks, so same guys, and then Sharks, maybe your Mulitalos, Hines, Talakais, should they happen to get a start somewhere. Basically, though, it's not too much to worry about. Last year, I think it was Manly who played the game straight after in both of those weeks, and you're going...
chaos.
Yeah, chaos. DCEs, Tommy Turbos, not Ruben Garrix, but anyway, not too much of a drama. Heaps to look into with it all anyway, and look, I won't go on for too long, but it's just it should help you with your decision-making process this far out. So you look at the teams that are playing that round 13... And when you're deciding on your cheapies this week, which we'll get to in a minute, but guys like Isaiah Tass, Joseph Suwali, Coolers, there's a few others there. If you're 50-50 between them and you don't know how to split them, you go, all right, well, let's see who's playing round 13, in which case it might be a Suwali, it might be a Cooler, and Tass might not be. So that might lean you in your favour. So it's a real good sort of decision maker for you to help out. And the other big one is looking at blokes to hold and sell. So there are guys now that I own a few of them, others own a lot of them. that you'd be going, they're underperforming, let's get rid of them. But then you go, well, how bad are they going? And they're playing round 13. And the ones that come to mind here are Adam Fanua-Blake, Tommy Starling. They're not hurting your team at all. They might not be helping it much, but to have an extra gun or semi-gun in round 13, that's where you go, maybe I'll hold on to them. If they weren't playing round 13, you go, see you later.
Did you get all that? A lot to weigh up.
Did you get all that, mate?
Oh, mate. Normally my season's done and dusted by this point, so I don't normally have to worry about this sort of stuff, but it is a lot to take in. Mate, you mentioned a few times there, Origin. It's not far away. We've just seen Tommy Turbo. He has been named this afternoon, 969K. Personally, I just think with, he's got the Melbourne Storm coming up, whether he plays that or not, it remains to be seen with Origin and whatnot. I assume he won't, actually. I just don't think.
You assume he won't play that Melbourne
That's the
Storm
week
game.
of Origin, isn't it? Will he be in
That's the
squad
week
already?
before the Melbourne one. They play the Warriors round 13.
So there's a tough matchup. Yeah. Oh, I personally don't think I can do it. I think I'm going to wait till post-Origin. He's no stranger to an injury. Fingers crossed we don't see it again for Origin, for Supercoach, for everything. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential upside to get out of a move to Turbo early. Fuck, it's a lot. It's a gamble.
Yeah, look, I can't do it either. I can see why people would be tempted, particularly people that are battling away a little bit and aren't doing as well as maybe they'd anticipated. They'd be sitting there getting itchy feet going, I need to make a big play here, and there's no bigger play than getting in Tommy Turbo. But realistically, you weigh up a few factors. The first one being that he's only averaging 64 points. So he played 4 games to start the year. Granted against, he opened the year with Penrith and the Roosters, but he put 66 on the Bulldogs, 87 on the Raiders, 162 break even, so should be dropping decent money. Tigers this week, I just want to see him get through, as you said, injury-free. If he comes out and puts 150 on the Tigers, which he absolutely could do, I will be considering him, particularly with a game against the Broncos at Suncorp. Great serves for Supercoach scoring. But then, mate, Eels into the Storm. You're just sitting there going, that where he'll miss Origin. Does he get a rest after those round 13s and round 17s of Origin? There's every chance. There's just a lot of risk for... there's a lot of reward, isn't there?
There's a heap of reward.
There's a heap of reward. But then you look at... So my halves and fullback this week are going to be Cleary and Hines at halfback, and then at fullback, Tedesco and Pappenhausen. Teddy, who's just hit his straps again after a lean sort of period. I don't want to trade any of them out, so, I just think you've got to wait.
It's an interesting one because if the Tigers were still the same team they were 4 weeks ago, I'd be a lot more interested in them. But seeing how they've gone the last few weeks, we know that Jackson Hastings has been leading that team around. Do you reckon he'll be excited to return to Brookvale Oval or what?
Christ, mate, I hope they go. They're nice to the poor fella.
It's going to be a very interesting game, and I think he's going to be up for it, which I think the Tigers will be up for it just quietly. So, I'm going to have to sit behind the lounge and watch Turbo this week. Mate, replacing Fafita, we spoke about him out this week, 3 to 4 weeks, Gonski. Origin not far away, another guy that it will impact him during probably not game 1, but I assume he'll play there at some point during the series. You're a Fafita owner. What are you doing?
I'm a Fafita owner. At this stage, I will be holding for 1 week, purely on the basis of I have other things to sort out, and I can't go straight to Isaiah Papali'i, who is realistically probably the number 1 trading target for him. It makes a fair bit of sense there. Cam Murray, I think I was like maybe 2 or 3K off using a trade boost to do him as my 3rd trade for the week. So I'm still going to have a bit of a tinker, but I think they sort of ride themselves straight in as 1 and 2, Papali'i and Cam Murray. Cam Murray has played big minutes all season. He has Origin coming up. He'll miss games throughout there. Every chance of getting a rest at some point, if not limited minutes throughout that period. So I do have my reservations over him, whereas at least with IPAP, and when we talk about back to looking around that Origin period, if you find Kiwis or Poms or any of these guys who are no chance of being affected, or just guys who are no chance at playing Origin, they just become so much more valuable because they don't have these rests and sit-outs. In fact, if they're playing in teams where they have teammates who might sit out or play less minutes, they might play bigger minutes. Yep. So IPAP plays that round 17 and he just looks a terrific buy. So despite being about 70k more, IPAP probably looks the better of the options. If we're looking at the cheaper brackets, Keon Kloamatangi's averaging 70 this year, going good. But again, on the cusp of Origin, wouldn't shock to see him floating around there. Taumalolo's one that you probably want up in front row forward. He's going berserk from what we've seen, 72 3-round average. Then you're going down to lower tiers, mate. Probably, another one who's Hamole Olakau'atu. I think we're both owners, have been pretty well all season. Yep. He's only at 6% ownership, which amazes me, but he's probably got to be nearly top of the pops. He's had a week off, so he'll be fresh. Tommy Turbo back. People say that Hamole goes maybe better without Tommy, but because he'll get a bit more ball, I don't know. I think Tommy just makes the whole team better and there's more try scoring opportunities.
Flat track too, Hamole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I suppose my question to you is, do we see Hamole playing Origin? Because that'll weigh into the factor, because if not, he plays round 13.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Hamole and Coleman, like I've already got Olakau'atu. I'm more than happy to stick with him. But I sort of think that because Freddie brought Coleman Tungy into the squad last year, and he's a guy that you can probably, I think he's more likely to be able to play middle and an edge sort of role, whereas Olakau'atu, I think he's more of just an edge sort of guy. So personally, I think Coleman Tungy will be in front of him. But I still do think there's a world where Freddie stays very loyal to the guys
he's a
he
loyal
picked
man.
last year. That's and I think it was Buzz Rothfield, the Mayo man, came out and said the other day that there's going to be 10 new guys or whatever.
Please.
I don't know if I'm buying it. I'm really not buying what he's selling. So I'm going to wait and see on that one. I'm more worried about Coleman Tungy. I'm not trying to buy him, but if I was, I'd be very worried about it.
And regardless, put it this way, I prefer Olakau'atu as a Supercoach player anyway than Kaloa Matangi. Even if Olakau'atu was to make that Origin squad, I'm still happy to invest in him. Yep. With the benefactor of, if he doesn't, you've got an out-and-out gun who not only can you hold for the year, but will play round 13 for you. So, if we're talking the lesser tier back row options to replace Dave Fafita, then I think Olakau'atu's your man.
I don't mind the little stack two of Olakau'atu and Kohler on that right edge, but I guess for you, Coleman Tungy and Campbell Graham would be pretty handy too.
Oh, Campbell Graham, he's just so enjoyable to own. He's just rock solid. I've been an owner for about 3 or so weeks now, and granted, he got out of jail a little bit with a late, I think it was try assist on the weekend, the one for Blake Taff, but
in good teams, that's going to happen.
Exactly right, mate. His base on the weekend was 47. For anyone sort of unfamiliar, I know we use this term a lot, but do feel the need. Base is your rock solid points. So your tackles each week, your runs each week, and then I believe it adds in your missed tackles as well. So for a bit of context, him going 47 and 43, he's got a base this season of 38. Base is a very important part of when you're assessing a Supercoach player's credentials. The average outside back probably base is like early 20s. He's almost 40, Campbell Graham. So you're doubling the score without any attacking stats coming to you in one of the better attacking teams in the competition. So, as I said, with him and Kaloa Matangi linking up a little bit there.
Mate, it's crazy. That 47, in my draft comp, you can't find front row forwards that have got base stats of 47 at the moment. I might have to have a look at Campbell Graham just quietly. He might have just convinced me. Mate, cheapies. A few weeks ago, I was thinking, there's not much doing. Now, I have to choose which ones I'm not going for. Between Tass, Tamari Martin, we've seen Ben Trebojevic named this week. There's a heap of guys to go into. I don't even know where to start. I'm just going to hand the mic to you. Shoot.
All good, mate. See what we can do here. It is, and it's back to that. We've spoken a fair bit about it this year, but the turning point of when you start targeting chasing points rather than cash generation. And up until this point, maybe give or take last week, it was all about chasing that cash, building your squad value, giving yourself that money to play and just get the guns in your team. We're at the point now where that tide's starting to turn and we can go, all right, we've got a fair bit of money in your team. So all of a sudden, if it was 3 weeks ago, you'd be going, all right, you have to get Tass in. You probably have to get Tamari Martin in as your 2 trades. You might even consider boosting and getting Cooler into your team as well. This week, because I want Nico Hines so bad and I need him, I'm going, I'm actually trading out Blake Taff, who has plenty more money to be made because of that late try that he scored from Campbell Graham. Cutting ties there, getting Nico Hines in, chasing the points over the cash, and then with my other trade, I'll be getting in some cash there, one of them cheaper guys. But as my centre wing stands, I've got Staggs, Graham, Talion May, Xavier Coates. And then my 3 reserves are Suwali, Kula, and Vaeli. So I'm like, the 3 reserves themselves are playing round 13.
Yeah.
They've all got a lot more money to be made, all things going to plan. I'm like, I don't want to trade any of them. So I'm sitting there going, geez, I want Tass. He's going to make some decent coin, but there's job security issues. He doesn't play round 13. By not going him, I could cost myself anywhere from $100,000 to, 300,000 if he scores a lot of tries in the next month or so. But, you can't have everyone, can you? So... and I'll get your thoughts on where you rank these blokes in terms of your job securities and buys and prices and whatnot. But you throw Tupolotu in there as well from Manly, who's got a break even of neg 44 or something. All of a sudden, Morgan Harper's dropped. Jason Saab's out for a month. Brad Parker's gone long term. So the job security of these guys is outstanding. So how do you narrow it down to the best buys, mate? And as I said, you could make a case for a lot of them. Where do you sit on these guys, and are you looking at getting any in this week?
The Manly fella, I don't know if I can trust he's going to be there in a couple of weeks. In saying that, I think Ben Trbojevic goes before he does.
For sure.
So, mate, to be honest, I probably need to have a closer look at these CTWs. I'm sort of planning on making one trade. I think Tass, I'm going to let him go this week. If he goes big this week, I think I might bite that I've lost the first one and then make it happen. I think he had a 37 or something as his first score. He scored the week before, so not a bad score, but that'll come out of his rolling average. So if he goes well this week, I think I might bite the bullet on him. I'm actually looking at, you mentioned him there, Valia. Scored a try on the weekend. It's still a very average score for me. I'm looking at him going, I think he's going to be a headache over the next few weeks. So I also wouldn't mind moving him to one of these other guys.
You own him and you consider him selling.
I own him, yeah. Well, I'm just looking at him like, I know he's going to make a bit of money, but mate, I don't see this Warriors, respectfully to the Warriors, I think they're very lucky they played the Raiders last week.
Yeah.
Let's be perfectly honest here. I just don't see them scoring too many points. I think he's a great player. I spoke about him in preseason. I think he's still very raw. They've got a heap of young outside backs that are on that extended too. So I'm not, at the moment, I wasn't going to trade any of them in this week. But Tass, if he goes big this week, I think he'll be the guy that I move to next week.
Yeah, and what about a bloke who I've, as it stands, brought into my team, and that is Tamari Martin, who we've spoken a little bit about in recent weeks. Dual 5'8", fullback, 205k. He fits my team, and he'll fit a lot of teams because Lachlan Ilias has peaked. So for me, for any teams in a similar position to myself where you're struggling to find ways to get these guys in at CT Dub, he looks a pretty good option going Ilias straight down to him.
Yeah, and I'm tossing up this week. This is going to be my one trade I'm going to make, whether or not I go Ilias to him, or if I go for a bit of a pod play, I'm thinking Drinkwater.
Yeah, well, Drinky.
I've got a heap of money sitting there. Drinky plays round 13. He's averaging 88 at the moment. I think he's still got a really good break even. So he's got some tough games coming up, but he's playing Newcastle this week. I think he can go 100 plus there, which means it'll have 113 and 100 this weekend in his rolling average for a few weeks. So I'm sort of, to have him round 13, I'm kind of happy to swallow that. I think it's a Penrith and a Melbourne Storm game.
Aren't they? I thought the Cows were playing the Cessnock Goannas this weekend, mate.
Yeah, they're playing them this week, so I think he'll score big. Then I think the 2 weeks after that, they've got a hard draw. That's what I'm saying. So
I'm with you, mate.
You lost me there.
Yeah, I know, I did.
Proceed.
I got a laugh from Maddie. So that's all I care about. My shit jokes.
But yeah, I'm deciding whether I go Tamari Martin and try and just grab that money. But I sort of feel like I've done really well with my money so far this year. So I'm sort of thinking I'm going to go for points
and that's
and
it,
go
mate.
Drinky here.
And that allows you to. Well, mate, you're doing the same with Drinky as I'm doing with Nico Hines this week.
Yeah, well, and I've already got Hines, so that's my thinking.
Mate, I did a big teams analysis. The team's dropping this afternoon. It's up on the website now. If anyone wants to look at that one, probably don't. And, mate, I was trying to find reasons to not go with Scotty Drinkwater. And I was like, I thought he had a really hard draw. And there are the tougher games coming out with Melbourne and Penrith. But the next 2 weeks, as you said, Knights into Tigers. I was like, oh, geez, they look all right. Neg 21 break even. And then I was like, oh, it doesn't play round 13. Shit, he plays round 13. I'm like, it's a pretty good case, isn't it?
Well, mate, as you said, -3 on break, he's already 600k right now. Like, I've had a lot of people message me and say, oh, I'm going to wait till the buy to get Drinkwater. You're going to be paying out your fucking nose to get Drinkwater.
And I don't think he'll be worth it then.
Yeah.
Plus, following games against Melbourne and Penrith, in all likelihood, he probably doesn't score that well, and they could have that huge break-even set to plummet cash. So it's like, I do think it's pretty close to now or never with Scotty Drinkwater. Yeah, I think he's a great buy this week. I'd look elsewhere at 5'8", because I still think he's a rung below. He's got real low scores in him, Scotty. But to be fair, that's been in worse Cowboys teams. So if they can continue the form that they're showing the Cows, well, there's no reason why Drinky can't keep carving up. So
my other line of thinking with Drinky is that we get to round 13. A lot of the big guns are missing, obviously. He plays the first game of the weekend. You've got a free shot at your VC and captain. He plays the Titans on the Thursday night. So he's a guy that I would definitely be VCing in that game. He'd be a real pod play that I think if people don't buy him this week, they're not going to buy him because he's going to skyrocket before people realise. Yeah, I probably should have shut up about this a while ago because I'm
mate, I like that.
Yeah, but I don't like them knowing about it.
You've been looking a long way ahead here.
I have, I've been going deep. I've also got Drinky in my draft team, so I've watched him very closely. I genuinely think the Cowboys are the real fucking deal now. I don't think they'll beat Melbourne or they'll beat Penrith, but I think they'll hang in the contest there. I think they'll do well. So
the other thing is, because by that point, round 11, another 2 weeks from now, squads are going to be quite deep. So barring injury suspensions, which, inevitably can happen, we've got a pretty good bench to choose from. And there's often, one or two players this week it might be, like the likes of a Taff or a Will Penasini or someone like that who aren't actually in your team, who, if you're that terrified to play Drinky v Penrith or the Storm, you can do it if you want. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And, mate, once again, I look at that round 13 and I look at the guys that are going to be out. You got the Titans playing the Cowboys, Penrith, Bulldogs, Manly, New Zealand, Canberra, Roosters. Mate, there's a really good chance that Drinky will be the top scorer that weekend.
Yep, could be a cheeky little he could be a path to Tommy Turbo post round 13.
That's the other thing. Yeah. I think there's a really good chance he makes enough money that he will be. So, yeah, that was a good little chat about cheapies that turned into
premium 5'8"
7 or 8 minutes. That was good. Mate, should we dive into... So, have you got any more cheapies you want to touch on, or can...
Mate, no one else to touch on there. I was just finishing up on Tamari Martin. I just think, again, we've spoken a fair bit about it in the last few weeks, but I think his job security is pretty good. Hey, we've spoken about how classy he looks. They need a 5'8", the Broncos. He could easily wrap up the fullback spot. Tessie News at hammy and still a little bit away, so where they opt to keep him there. I just think at 200k, he's got a good score in his 3-round rolling average now from last week. I like Tamari Martin.
He'll be in that team somewhere.
Yep.
If Tessie comes back, he will be the 5'8" for sure for me. He's just too silky. He's too classy not to be in that side. All right, first question. Love talking about Drinkwater. I'll throw this. I shouldn't have probably asked this one. This one comes from @K Optimal Fitness. Ride the Taft price wave or move to Drinkwater. Planning for 13. You know what I'm doing. Have I convinced you?
You haven't, because what am I doing? I'm getting... At 5'8", I brought Cody Walker last week, and I'm going down from Ilias to Tamari to free up cash to go Taff to Nico Hines.
Yep.
But the question is the same sort of line of thinking, isn't it?
Yep.
So, yeah, look, I'd be pretty hypocritical if I said no to that, wouldn't I?
Yeah. Fair shout.
No, that's fine.
I probably should have known.
And I mean, just on Taff, break even of 10, 300k. He has a 21 from 2 weeks ago that'll drop out of his rolling average this week. A game against the Broncos this week at home. So, if even he punches out 50 odd there's a fair bit of money still to be made in.
Yeah.
Like that 10 break even is a little bit misleading. So put it this way, if you're trading this week, fully expect him that he could hit 450k in 3 weeks' time, where people are selling him for more money, but that's the sacrifice we make for points.
Yeah. Okay. Next one comes from @Riley Hodgson. What's to do with Jai Arrow? I'm not a Jai Arrow owner. I believe you are. Yeah. Well, what's doing with Jai?
Yeah, I've had Arrow since round 1, and he's done a very solid job, averaging 55 points, 64 minutes per game, played 80 on the weekend, which was mad, but also had his second lowest score for the season, which is just another Supercoach lesson that minutes don't always translate into more points because, output, points per minute often drop the longer blokes go. As for Arrow, he's a trade before round 13 because the Bunnies don't play it. He'll have origin duties, so won't be available round 17. He's not a keeper. As I said, he's been a rock-solid player so far, but as I said, he's not in the elite players of Supercoach. He's been good, but there are so many better players. But with guys like Max King, Josh King peaking in price, Chris Randall, a few others out there, Will Penasini's, they're way more urgent trades. So just, if your team, see how your team's set up, but I'd hold him for another 2 or 3 weeks. He'll do a job and then move him on from there before round 13.
Just looking at his stats, geez, a try wouldn't have gone astray, would it?
Well, that was one of my big logics with him at the start of the season. Moving to the edge, I'm going, yeah, his output will be down a little bit, but in this Bunnies team, like, attacking stats have to come. He's playing outside Cody Walker, for God's sake. It just can't jag a thing, can he? I'm like, so that 55 average, I thought with a few attacking stats would be 65, 70. They just don't want to come.
Mate, the next one comes from @HarryG, and there was a number of questions on this guy, Reuben Cotter, one of my favourites at the moment. I don't have him in my team solely because I just don't trust the Cowboys' rotation, and I don't trust what Todd's going to do week to week. He's on a winning ticket, there's no doubt about it. But him changing his forward pack hasn't really changed. We're still seeing different minutes and whatnot. Reuben played 80 minutes on the weekend. He base statted 75.
Immense.
Incredible. Dallas Johnson 2.0.
Yeah, good going. Played 80 minutes was the big thing. It's like we know, we speak about, I just mentioned how some players play bigger minutes and their work rates drop. Cotter's just continues the whole way through. So, and the fact that his dual second row forward hooker is massive as well, because people are looking at who to move Randall onto, and there aren't a lot of great hooking options outside of Harry Grant. And, Cookie maybe, but again, there's the origin issue and whatnot. Cotter just fits that billing so perfectly. If we knew he was playing 80 every week, he'd be locked and loaded. But the weeks prior to that, 56, 51, 49, 56, 59 minutes. Around that game time, I think at 482K, I think the ship has sailed, and it's like, yeah. We then look at Origin where there's every chance he gets a bench spot there and won't play around 13. His break-even's 39, so you can have a look at him in his minutes this week. Like, you don't need to look at him. We know what he's going to do. He's going to go there and bust through a lot of tackles and runs and probably make a line break, whatever. But just want to see his minutes this week. So he won't make too much money even if he goes big. I'm waiting another week, and then I'll probably move Randall to him next week if he plays, 60 plus.
Mate, in a weird way, he's actually been named to start this week. That almost worries me more.
But that means he's set for a 35-minute bench roll.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm so I loved him. Spoke about him all preseason. I remember on draft day, all my mates were shocked when someone else drafted him, and I just went, "It's a headache I can't do."
Yeah,
I love him, but I can't do it. Mate, our next question. Love this one from Nick A. Pick 2: Hines, Walker, Munster.
Awesome question. Purely on where we think who will average more for the rest of the season, I'm going Munster, Nico, Cody. I wouldn't say comfortably, but I'll be happy with my choice.
Yep.
But Supercoach is all about value and getting people at price points, isn't it? And Cody's the cheapest of them. He's about to make a lot of money. He's a proven keeper, which if we've learned anything this season, it's that give blokes the benefit of the doubt after a few lean weeks if they've got years of points behind them, which Cody Walker does. I had the Munster v Walker question last week and thankfully went with Walker, punched out nearly a ton. Munster was 70-odd. As far as price points go, I like Cody Walker. Unlikely to play Origin, barring injuries. Anything could change from there, so I like that about him. Hopefully around 17 coverage. Munster's every chance at getting rests over Origin, particularly early spells in games when they're ahead. So at the price points, I'm probably going Walker, Hines, and then just behind Munster. Let's say you're flushed with cash, just get Munster because he's the best of them. But, that's not how Supercoach works.
It's a tough one because in 10 weeks, if we were to put this question up again and look back at it, we'll know exactly what the right choice was, pending who plays and whatnot. It's a tough one. I'm leaving Cody Walker. I considered him last week. I left him and... Mate, it was a tough watch, but from being a Cody Walker owner in draft, I will say this about Walker, he's a great player. He has to do a lot to get his Supercoach points. He has to do a heap to get them. Whereas Munster and Hines, they just seem to stack up points left, right and centre. But you're right, it's the value argument that matters when it comes to Walker.
But let's also be realistic. Cody, who hadn't been very impressive this season, he had a 10-point game against the Dragons a month back, followed up by 44 against the Dogs. 99 was comfortably his best score of the season. ahead of his 77 the week before. He needed 12 blokes against him to do that.
And he scored about 67 of those points in a 10-minute period.
Yeah, which is the flip side. It's like, we know what he can do.
Yes,
He's so
exactly,
lethal.
yeah.
The penny hasn't dropped for the Bunnies or Cody Walker yet this season. I want to be there. Well, I am going to be there, hopefully, when that does. But if it doesn't happen, there's no promise that Cody Walker comes out and averages 70+ for the rest of the season. So it's a friggin' tough question, that one.
Yeah, and we know what Cody can do, but we also know that Souths aren't an 80-minute side.
Yeah.
And that's why I've decided to leave him. Could come back and bite me in the arse, but I'm going to leave him for now. The next one comes from @Caleb Murray. Cheers to all the legends that have sent these questions through. There was an absolute heap there. We can only answer so many, though. Adam Fanua-Blake, moving forward. Disappointing, underwhelming, would you describe AFB so far this year?
Yeah, disappointing. He's been pretty good at NRL at times, particularly the first part of the season. Particularly because we sort of made a few assumptions early on, or in the preseason, that if he got decent minutes, 55 to 60, that there should be improvement on him based on sort of playing lesser minutes in the past. He's basically a carbon Supercoach copy in terms of his credentials as Jai Arrow, in that on a normal week, you'd be saying sell. There are way better options to go for, but aside from his 27 last week, he's been solid enough, he's doing a job, and he plays round 13. For that reason alone, I'd just plug him at front row until round 13 and take his points there and sell him on at round 14. That being said, if he's your ticket to an Isaiah Papali'i or someone, then go on and do it. But I'd be happy just to slot him in there until round 13, but, it's a tough one because he hasn't been great.
Another one that I'm very surprised hasn't come up with a try yet. Any creative stats?
Not a try. He'll often jag, not often, but after 8 rounds of action, maybe a try assist off an offload late at the line or a tip on or something. None of that, which is another reason to suggest he's just one of them away from turning his 52 that he's averaging into a 75 or something. So, yeah.
Mate, the next one, @Joel Fraser. I think this is a really interesting one. He says, Aitken or Angus. As an Aitken owner, I've had him all year. Was very happy on the weekend with a 100+ score. Angus, very impressive. Bounced back on the weekend. I still don't know if I trust him just stay as a second rower for foreseeable future with the way the Chooks are going. I wouldn't be surprised if Robbo does make more changes. He's also obvious, we assume he's going to play Origin. So whilst Angus is the better pedigree Supercoach player, I think I prefer Aitken. But I've got to ask, has the ship sailed a little bit on Aitken?
Yeah, I think so. Aitken owners would be happy with him. Yep. Another that plays round 13, new beauty, but he's averaging 63 this season. You've just been waiting all this season for that big score, haven't you? And you've finally got it. He had a 94 a month back, but aside from that, he's been all between 44 and 61 points. So solid, but also not sort of keeper territory. As far as the question goes, if I'm a head-to-head player, I'd probably get Angus Crichton because you're not really worried about round 13, which you and Aitken plays. Angus Crichton won't. 3 80-minute games in a row, Crichton played arguably his best game of the season on the weekend, 80 points, 60 in base, huge. But as you said, on any given week, he could drop back to the bench. I just think that come Origin period, because they do have a fair bit of depth in their pack, particularly their back row, there's every chance they're backing up from Origin, or on any given week there, he comes off the bench and goes back to that 50. Well, there were 2 weeks he played 36 and 35 minutes.
Yep.
Whereas at least with Aitken, even with Tohu coming back, I think he probably stays in that 80-minute role. So he's just so much more secure. Crichton, it's a great question because Crichton is a way better Supercoach player than you and Aitken, but he's not as safe, is he?
Yeah. Is there someone that you would suggest to this young bloke to go over these two? Is there an obvious one for you that you would look to move? Obviously, IPAP would be the ideal if he's got the money in the kitty, but is there anyone, I know I'm putting you on the spot, is there anyone in the same sort of realm of price range that you would look at?
I think Olakau'atu's 620k, so there's only 60k more if you'd like to get him into your team. Pending how his side is working, Jason Taumalolo, again, plays round 13, is getting back to where we want him to be in Supercoach circles and looks not a must-have for round 13, but we'll be pretty close to it by then. If you can flip him, and particularly, you can get him at second row, but his value is at front row in a pretty weak position, particularly with Payne Haas now out for anyone looking to move him on. So I think Payne Haas is a good option. But yeah, if he's a non-Olakau'atu owner, I think that's the answer.
Just not a question, but we talked about him last week, Josh Maguire. If you moved to him, you got exactly what you deserved, didn't you? Good, but not fantastic, but this is what you're going to get every single week from this.
Yeah, look, we tried to warn people, and as you said, he scored 50. Like, it's not like it was the end of the world.
It wasn't a disaster, but...
Yeah, but it just...
50 is not hard to come by in your 2 RFs for almost 500k.
Exactly right. It was one of them things where, like, if he'd played a stack of games off the bench and he was 350k, you'd jump on, bank the 150, 200k, but 470k, not cheap.
Yeah, mate, let's have a look at our captains for this weekend. I went Pappy last week. Somehow he got all of the unicorn points in the world. I don't know how on
all
earth
that the Supercoach gods and News Corp were able to dish up for Pappy captainers.
It was incredible. Mate, let's have a look at this week. Obviously, you've got Nathan Cleary. He's taking on the Parramatta Eels. Not ideal, but not a train wreck either. The Parramatta and Eels, no stranger to conceding a heap of fucking points. You got Turbo walking in against the West Tigers if you were to grab him this week. Teddy, off the back of 100, taking on the Gold Coast Titans. I don't know if I could do it. But it's got to be Pappy, doesn't it? Taking on the St.
I think it's got to be Pappy, yeah. It'll be Pappy for me. The other option is, do you maybe go, if you want to be a little bit more left field, VC, Teddy into Nico Hines. I know he's coming off a 68, so that's all right, but coming off a semi-lean spell by his standards at the start of the year, but the Sharkies, I think they played 3 games in 11 days or something.
Yeah,
so
something ridiculous.
They had a down week coming. They now get a good, something like a 9 or 10 day turnaround between games against the Warriors, who are in all sorts. It's at PointsBet Stadium in Cronulla there. So, mate, Nico could go big in that one, and I don't hate that. But I'm not one to take a big gamble with captains. I'm conservative in a lot of ways to my Supercoach approach because I think people take risks for no reason, just to be Larry, which is cool. Yep. Each to their own. But, mate, Pappy, you can just see him coming out and getting 200 and those non-captains sitting there going, like, why wouldn't we? The bloke's averaging 98 points.
A fullback in a gun team, goal kicking. He's a handy goal kicker too. Mate, even I, knowing that I'm going to have Drinkwater this week, I just looked at the Cowboys at home against the Knights and thought, maybe I'll VC. But then I thought to myself, what on earth is Drinkwater going to have to get for me to turn down a Pappy? See, realistically, that's he would have to go 150.
And it's a good point you make when you're looking at your vice captains on a week where you're looking at Pappy going, every chance he goes 150. So your vice captain can't really be. I know people captain like even your Harry Grants or your Payne Hasses, or to a probably slightly less degree, David Fafita's when he was in touch before, Pappy takes on a Dragons or Cleary takes on a Titans on a given week or something. And it's like, to warrant doing that, they have to go, 150 plus. So when you're picking your vice captains, when there's a gun captaincy matchup, it has to be one of the real high upside, outside backs, halves, maybe a centre wing sort of thing. So just consider that.
It's Pappy or nothing this week, I think,
all
for
aboard.
me. Mate, that'll do us for today. Guys, as I've said from the start, if you're not following the Supercoach Playbook on all socials and their podcast, make sure you get stuck into their gear. The very best Supercoach content in the Supercoach game. Podcast, YouTube, brought to you by Bloke in a Bar. Make sure Monday you get your paws on one of these bad boys. They are unreal. Bloke jerseys coming Monday, 6 p.m. Make sure you stay alert for those. There is limited number on those, so make sure you get in very quickly. $99 value there is unreal. Have you seen how much an NRL jersey costs you nowadays?
Mate, thousands.
It is ridiculous.
What are they sting you?
160 of the best.
Jesus.
It's a stitch up.
Yeah.
$99 for that. It is unreal. Guys, thanks again for joining us on Beers and Breakevens. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff for us. We're lifting those subscribers every single week. And tell your mates to play Supercoach to come over. We've got top 1,000 players here. We've got 4 of the top 10. We've got Matty. We've got it all here. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.